Good morning. Morning. Please, they told us we are in a young auditorium. Good morning. All right, a lot of people said we wouldn't come to Strathmore. Look at us now. Where are we? So, we need the energy. We've heard so much about the business school. We've heard so much about Strathmore. We've heard so much about the hydrogen hub, the environmental and social club. I think that's it. We know you're the student president as well, so in case anyone doesn't respond, I'll look at you. But we need the energy to go from here to here, yeah? Let's start off with a game. We're going to go from A to Z. When you hear the letter, say a country. A is pretty easy. One of the reasons why we're here today. A. B. Represented here. C. Please feel free to also say African countries. D. E. I hope you maintain until Z. Okay, F. G. H. I. J. K. Sorry, I have a problem hearing. K? Okay, there we go. L. M. N. O. For a bit there. Okay, P. Sir, do you not know any countries? Q. R. S. T. U. V. Wales might not be a country, but W? Oh, I thought the engineering students knew everything. X. It's really been a country on its own, that platform, huh? Twitter. Y. Z. Please, round of applause for yourselves. We're going to go pretty quickly. When we say a name, to just acknowledge the reason why we're here today and the people that have brought us here today, when we say a name, one clap, okay? The Australian High Commission, Strathmore Business School, the Hydrogen Hub, UNESCO, yourselves, to all the panelists that are here today, and of course the High Commissioner. See? Quick, efficient. Energy saving. Fantastic segue to why we're here today. We've been discussing what clean energy looks like. There are a lot of trends that have emerged over the last few years. Some working pro different geographies, some working to the advantage of where we are in our localities and the continent. We'd like to see what cross-continental collaboration looks like, the potential for future innovation and where the trends are heading. We'll get to hear some really deep and insightful perspective, but also at some point during the day today, we'll have a panel and we'll get to hear from the panelists. Esteemed panelists will give us their breakdown and what they've experienced in their different organizations, but we'd like to come back to you. So this is just my call to all of you. As we continue with the day and we hear the first speakers, the keynote, and then get to the panel, please write your questions down. We'll have about 15, 20, maybe half an hour of Q&A from the audience to make sure that you also have value for your time, why you came here. The conversation is on renewables and clean energy. We've made a lot of progress in the country, but we are yet to do a lot more. So what do we need to do to go from here to here with the collaborators, some of whom are in the room? I don't want to take too much time. To kick things off, please allow us to call to the stage, please, with a warm round of applause, Her Excellency Jenny Dareen, the Australian High Commissioner to Kenya, to deliver her welcome remarks.
Thank you, Georgie. Good morning, everyone. Is the energy level better? It certainly is for me. That worked really well. Thank you. Because Georgie did a great job of acknowledging everybody who's here, I'm not going to spend time to do that. I just want to express my appreciation to everybody for coming to this event. But I do want to mention two people in particular. Firstly, Dr. Vincent Ogutu and his team, he's Vice-Chancellor of Strathmore. I met Vincent last year and I've just found you and Strathmore enormously responsive, and I think we're building a really strong, diverse and productive partnership. So I want to thank you for that. And this is another example of that partnership in action. I also want to warmly welcome Professor Harleen Hayne, the Vice-Chancellor of Curtin University. It's wonderful to have you in Nairobi. Professor Hayne arrived last night and we are working her very hard today. But she's keeping up really well. This is Professor Hayne's first visit to Kenya as Vice-Chancellor, and I sincerely hope it will be the first of many. I want to talk a bit about what Australia's doing, and I want to connect that to how we see opportunities in Africa, just to sort of kickstart the conversation. So the first thing I want to say is that we are committed to working with Africa to address the challenges of climate change, including through global forums such as the UN. And we recognise the leadership role that African countries are playing to drive action towards the achievement of SDG 7 and advocate for the needs of developing countries. This is very important, and that effort has to continue. One of the many ways that we do collaborate is through knowledge sharing. So today, that's what we're here to do. We're here to share our experience on how we're implementing an ambitious agenda, opportunities and challenges to deliver net zero by 2050. We'll also discuss various dimensions of that, and I'm really interested to see what comes out of the panel discussion in that regard. The second thing I want to say is that Australia is absolutely committed to the Paris Agreement on climate change. Our Minister for Climate Change, Chris Bowen, who has just been reappointed following an election in Australia, said recently that net zero by 2050 is the bare minimum, and he committed to working on our updated 2035 emissions reduction target in this new term. So it's a very positive signal from our government. I will say, you know, there has been a strong debate in Australia about this, but that is a very positive signal from our government. Australia also, alongside our partners in the Pacific, has offered to host the 2026 Conference of the Parties on Climate Change, COP31. We see that COP as an important opportunity to strengthen the voice of countries that are most vulnerable to climate change impacts that risk worsening inequality and eroding decades of development gains. And in some places, we're already seeing that. We're seeing changes to weather patterns across Africa and Australia, which are unprecedented. In Kenya, for example, the wet seasons, which I'm told you could once set your calendar by very reliably, are increasingly unreliable. They're coming later and sometimes not at all. Dry seasons are becoming longer and more intense. And the rains, when they come, are causing severe flooding. Australia is seeing some of the hottest weather ever recorded, as well as some of the wettest. And in my own home state of New South Wales, where my brother-in-law lives, they've had something like 300 millimetres of rain in the last 36 to 48 hours, and they're on a farm and they're completely stranded. At home in Canberra, where I currently live, it's completely bone dry. There you go. Australia's commitment to reducing emissions to net zero by 2050 includes emissions reductions to 43% below 2005 levels by 2030 and an uplift in our renewable energy supply to 82% by 2030. And those targets are now enshrined in law. For Australia, the transition to a net zero economy makes environmental and economic sense. Wind and solar PV are the cheapest forms of new electricity generation and are expected to dominate Australia's renewable energy. Already, 35% of Australian homes have solar panels on their roofs. That's around 4 million homes in Australia. Mine too. Most of that is private investment. While solar power dominates, wind energy is becoming an increasingly important component of Australia's renewable energy portfolio. Wind-rich regions, particularly in South Australia, Victoria and Tasmania. By the way, do some of you know where I'm talking about? I hope so, Southern Australia. Have seen huge investments in large-scale wind farms, resulting in some of the largest wind power projects in the Southern Hemisphere. But this sort of investment has required policies that support the net zero transition and certainty to attract capital. First, the government created a policy environment that encouraged the renewable transition, and it did this by legislating our net zero targets. Making them law gives certainty for investors and obligations for government. Second, the government worked closely with the Australian states to remove roadblocks to the timely delivery of projects. And having investment-ready projects, in my experience working in Southeast Asia on Southeast Asian development, is actually crucial to attracting investment. And third, the government has invested through programs like the $20 billion Rewiring the Nation initiative, which aims to make clean energy more accessible and affordable for Australian consumers. That program works to modernise Australia's electricity grid, deliver new and upgraded grid infrastructure, and provides finance at concessional rates to reduce the cost of those investments. It's also investing in large-scale battery storage, pumped hydro projects, and in community batteries to help more people access solar and maximise the benefits of Australia's rooftop solar transformation. Through the Australian Government's Capacity Investment Scheme, don't you know, governments always like to talk about their programs, but they're important things. We're supporting a pipeline of private sector investment in renewable energy projects. The scheme provides a long-term revenue safety net that decreases financial risk for investors, and that ensures that more renewable energy projects get built. And it's also supporting the private sector to take advantage of the opportunities of the transition through the Future Made in Australia program. This is a huge government initiative that will provide $22.7 billion to unlock private investment in net zero industries like green hydrogen, local battery and solar panel manufacturing, and green metals. This will support long-term, well-paid jobs to more than 2 million workers across the Australian economy. Now, many countries are on this journey, and Australia is working with partners to share experience and identify opportunities for partnership and collaboration. In the Asia Pacific, for example, we have a program that's enabling our experts to engage with countries like Indonesia, Vietnam, and the Philippines on the policy and regulatory environment, on capacity building, and on developing investment-ready projects, as I said earlier. We hope that we'll see more collaboration between Australia and Africa, including Kenya. Through these partnerships, like the one established by Strathmore and Curtin on hydrogen, we see prospects to deepen engagement and collaboration and foster knowledge exchange. Because Kenya, like Australia, has made real and meaningful commitments to reduce emissions to keep global temperature increases below 1.5 degrees Celsius. And more broadly, Africa is rapidly transitioning towards net zero with a strong focus on solar and wind power, like us. Renewable energy sources are playing a key role in diversifying the energy mix, reducing dependence on fossil fuels, and improving energy access. Distributed renewable energy solutions, including standalone systems and mini-grids, are helping to expand electricity access to off-grid areas and strengthening supply in connected areas. Africa is also demonstrating strong leadership in this area, with much of its energy consumption coming from renewable sources, particularly in Kenya. This trend outpaces Europe, North America, and Asia. In fact, many of the African countries with least access to electricity have the highest share of renewable energy in their energy mix. And with Africa holding 30% of the world's essential minerals for renewable technologies and 60% of the world's best solar resources, the continent has enormous potential to fuel its future growth with clean energy. In Australia, we also expect new industries to develop which will bring new jobs, and Africa too can reap those benefits. So what role will universities like Curtin and Strathmore play in the transition? Universities are already at the forefront of developing new technologies and solutions related to green energy. This includes research on renewable energy sources like solar, wind and geothermal, as well as energy efficiency and storage technologies. Universities are also responsible for educating the next generation of green energy professionals. They're developing curricula that integrate sustainability into all disciplines, ensuring that students understand the importance of green energy and are prepared to contribute to the transition. Just as importantly, maybe more importantly for many of the students here, universities provide the foundational knowledge and specialised skills needed for various green energy jobs, from engineers and scientists to policymakers and business leaders. Universities can work with industry partners to create internship programs, apprenticeship opportunities, and graduate programs that prepare students for those jobs of the future. I know both Curtin and Strathmore are fully embracing the transition through their course offerings, their innovation and their research, and support for events like the one we're having here today to stimulate the discussions that we need to have. And for all of you, the future policy makers, the great engineers and business people will be the beneficiaries driving and implementing the transition and contributing to its success. And now it's time to hear from the experts. I look forward to the discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for setting the stage so effectively. What's the capital of Australia? Sorry? No cheating, no. Canberra. It's my privilege to introduce our first keynote speaker. Dr. Vincent Ogutu is the Vice Chancellor of Strathmore University. Yes, a leader who passionately challenges his students and audiences to apply their talents for a greater purpose. You okay to go first? Yeah. Dr. Vincent, please. Okay. Karibu.
Thank you very much, Ambassador, Professor, all distinguished guests. Welcome to Strathmore. I'll say it in Kiswahili because we're in Kenya. Karibuni, Strathmore. Welcome to Strathmore. Now, I know this is an energy meeting and our MC has taken it to a whole new level. So by energy, he understands the energy you have. So it's not about, you know, clean energy or whatever. It's the energy from inside. And thank you for raising our energy levels to a level where we could actually engage. So I'm really not an expert in energy, but I just love the collaboration that's going on here. As Ambassador Jenny has told you, that connection was immediate, and we've always known Australia as a very friendly place, friendly people, happy people, and that has made it a lot easier for us to have this collaboration and to make it just such a pleasurable collaboration between us, Curtin, and Australia at large. So we're very happy with this relationship. And the ambassador's also spoken about why universities. You know, universities are a great place to get things going. We're almost seen as a trusted partner by everyone. We're not politicians. We're not trying to make money out of you. We're just interested in knowledge and development, and so we become easily a trusted partner. And so when you want to get anything done, you want to get innovation, you want to get development, a good starting point is a university, because we can attract all the people who would make all of that possible. And so we're happy to play that role here in Kenya, and to play it with such a trusted partner as Curtin, who are ahead of us in the energy game. So this is a role that we've always played in our history. So Strathmore tries to be an entrepreneurial university. By that we mean we take on problems that have not been solved yet, and we try and figure out how to solve it. We bring the innovation and research side to it. But also, to make things happen, you need to be an entrepreneur. You need to bring resources to bear. You need to clear obstacles out of the way by creating the right policies and protocols that can make those innovations take root. And that is a role that Strathmore has always played from its very earliest days. So when we first existed as an institution, 1961, this was pre-independence Kenya. You have the British government in place, and Strathmore offers to start a multiracial educational institution. Nothing like that existed in East and Central Africa. But Strathmore proposed it. Strathmore lobbied to be allowed to perform this social experiment. We were given the permission to do it. It was definitely very entrepreneurial, very avant-garde. And I've spoken with some of the founders, like Kevin O'Byrne, and he told me what it was like running the first multiracial rugby team in this part of the world and telling people to hunker down to go, into a scrum, and seeing one of the white boys hesitating. And he says, I said, scrum down, what's happening, Ryan? He says, I've never gone neck and neck, shoulder to shoulder with an African in my life. And he tells him, oh, it'll be all right, just get down, scrum down. And 2 weeks later, they're best of friends, Africans, Indians, Europeans, and that was the social experiment that Strathmore performed. And so in our history, we've always tried to go where no one else has gone before. So that was pre-independence Kenya. Once we got independence, the Brits left, and so did a lot of the professionals. So the accountants left. There was something like 4 accountants in the country, which is ridiculous if you're going to start a new economy and businesses. Somebody had to fill that gap and start training accountants. So Strathmore moved in 1966, and you could reliably say that all the chief accountants in all the countries around Kenya, so East and Central Africa, for almost 2 decades were trained at Strathmore. So they had an outsized influence in the economies that they were operating in on business, because again, Strathmore saw a gap and said, let's go in there. And I could go on and on about the different innovations and areas that we've gone into as an entrepreneurial university. But right now we're talking about energy. And when it comes to solar energy, to clean energy, Strathmore was the first institution, so not just university, but the first institution to plug into the national grid and provide solar power into the national grid. We didn't even know how to do that, because unlike what we do with other independent power producers like diesel, you just choose when to switch it on and plug into the system. It's easy. But with solar, you've got a dynamic arrangement where when the sun shines, that's when you want to provide. You have to be ready all the time. How are we going to do that? And so we had to come up with the protocols to even make it possible to be registered as an independent power producer in addition to being a university, and then create the protocols to make that work. And then learn how to get money out of a government that doesn't want to pay for the services rendered. And now that we learned how to do it, when anyone else wants to do it, they come and say, Strathmore, how did you do it? And we're happy to show them how to do it, because we don't have the capacity to supply the entire country. We don't see them as competitors. We see them as collaborators helping us to provide electricity for the country. So we show them the way, we share our experience, and we help them set up. And now we're moving into yet another area, courtesy of Curtin. So we're looking at hydrogen, and how does that work? No one's done it in the region. And we want to experiment, we want to try, we want to see how it works. And once we've made all the mistakes and learned how it works, we then create a safe entry pathway for everyone else to join it. Now, it's easy to sit back and relax when you look at some metrics in energy. So when you talk about clean energy, Kenya can already boast to be one of the best in the world. But that's just because, we've been using hydro and geothermal. It was kind of an easy entry. We got in clean from the beginning. And then we can rest on our laurels and say we're already way ahead of our Western and Northern partners. But that would be a ridiculous metric to celebrate and rest on, because we actually don't produce enough power. The reason some businesses leave Kenya and move to some other countries is because it's just so expensive to get energy here. So these are some of the challenges that I'd like us to address, especially today, and maybe the panel might tackle some of these issues. You know, how can we actually provide enough energy? And no development is going to work. I mean, all the other SDGs kind of grind to a halt if you don't have energy. So if you want to provide education, healthcare, they're all going to depend on the sources of power, on clean, cheap energy. And so this is a big issue that we're dealing with here. I don't have any solutions to offer you. I actually just have a lot of questions. And I think we do need to address them, even just to push forward the clean energy agenda. There are people who question it, they'll even start with climate change. What climate change? So you'll have people denying that there is any climate change. Whereas we actually do see the climate change. Now, if you've accepted that there is climate change, then now what's the origin? Is it humans? Is it something cyclical that happens? Again, you need good answers in order to set out to do anything, because people will say, oh, you can't do anything about it. It's just cyclical. There's nothing you can do about it. And yet we're trying to talk about zero carbon, the stuff we're doing that's bad for the planet. And these are questions that need to be answered. And then now on the practical side, how do we get to be self-reliant, maybe even to export this clean energy, because we'll have the first mover advantage. We come in before other countries do, and Strathmore and Curtin become a catalyst to doing that. So how can we make all of that possible? So I have more questions than answers, but thankfully we have all kinds of people in the room who can help provide the answers. So we have our Australian experts, we have our local experts as well, the UNESCO chair, Strathmore Energy Research Centre. There's the business side, because all this has to be sustainable. We have Strathmore Business School. And then who's going to be trained? Who are the ones going to do the research? We have faculty. You can see our student president here. So the students are going to play a huge role in this. So thankfully, we've got all the people in the room. And I'm just throwing those questions out to you. How can we have an impact? And how can we lead the charge? We're not afraid. So we're not afraid to go where other people haven't gone before. That's what actually gets us out of bed every day. We come to the university excited about the possibility of innovating, solving complex problems. So bring it on. Don't shy away. Let's put our minds together. Ask the tough questions. And for the panelists and anyone else who's going to be in the conversation, think of it as friendly fire. So the tough questions are not supposed to put you down. It's friendly fire, because that's what will trigger the innovation and the thinking and solving actual problems. If no one asks complex questions, then what are we solving? So it's all friendly fire. It's all in a spirit of collaboration. And I'd like to thank all of you for being here today. And get your energy levels up, and let's do this. Thank you very much.
Since he's used my words on energy, okay. I've been given the green light. When we're asking the questions to be as tough as possible, I'll just call it friendly fire. I'll say the hosts told us to do it. All right, so next up on stage, by the way, you know, when we were coming in, we were told that people within academia, research, they speak for a minimum of 30 minutes. So thank you so much for not being part of the stereotype. Thank you. So we are moving really well with time, and we appreciate all of you also staying with us as we continue. Professor Harleen Hayne is the VC of Curtin University. The role of research is very crucial as we continue to discuss what clean energy looks like for the continent. So we'd like to get a bit more of a global view on research innovation and what now such institutions can do for the future of both regions. Thank you. Thank you. Please welcome.
Thank you very much, Georgie. I'd like to begin actually by acknowledging the way that you began our forum today with a huge amount of enthusiasm. Curtin strongly believes in having fun, and when we're making our way around the world, we really try to leave a bit of joy in our wake. So thank you very much for giving us all permission to have a bit of fun, to make a bit of noise, and to generate a bit of joy. While you were speaking, I was reminded of the words of the very famous African-American poet, the late Maya Angelou. who's best known for saying, people will never remember what you said, they'll never remember what you did, but they will always remember how you made them feel. So hopefully today, by the end of our forum, all of us will feel a number of things, including a huge amount of enthusiasm for participating in the transition to a cleaner, greener world for all of us. So thank you all for taking time out of your busy day to spend time with us today. It's my great pleasure to actually take part in this very important discussion. As you all know, addressing climate change is a critical issue for both of our nations. And it's really important that we focus some of the brightest minds in the world, both in Australia and in Africa, in creating a greener and fairer economy for all of us. Curtin is very proud to be a leading university partner in the Australian government's Australia-Africa Climate Diplomacy Initiative, which is actually supporting our event today. And I'd like to begin by acknowledging my co-presenters, Her Excellency Jenny Dorin, the Australian High Commissioner to Kenya, and Dr. Vincent Ogutu, the Vice-Chancellor of Strathmore University. Now, this is my first visit to Strathmore. It's the first time I've met the Vice-Chancellor, but in the 10 minutes or so we've had to chat, I've already discovered that we have two things in common. The first is that we both received our PhDs from Rutgers University in the United States. And on the basis of the Vice-Chancellor's opening comments, I think we both share a very strong belief in the transformative power of education. And I guess that's why I have spent the last 15 years of my life leading a university, because I truly believe that the solution to many of the problems that are facing the world right now will be born out of the world's higher education institutions. Now, I need to start with a bit of a disclaimer. I'm a psychologist by training. I am by no means an expert in the energy transition, but what I am is a huge enthusiast and cheerleader for all of the experts who work at my university, and it will be my great pleasure today to summarize some of the activity that Curtin has been leading in Australia and the way in which we are partnering with Africa in general and Kenya in particular in meeting our obligations for a cleaner, greener world. Now, just a bit of geography. We've talked a little bit about Australia. Curtin University's main campus is located in Western Australia, which essentially takes up the sort of the west half of the country. And we have a saying at Curtin that if we can decarbonize Western Australia, we can decarbonize the world. And we say this because Western Australia, where our main campus is located, our major industries include mining, petroleum and engineering, and agriculture. And we are a global leader in the extraction and supply of resources like iron ore, and we are a key contributor to Australia's food basket. Now, whilst overall, Australia's emissions are gradually declining, sadly, our state's emissions have increased over the last 20 years due to the strong growth in the mining industry and exports, as well as population growth, and to a strong increase in transport emissions. So our view is that if we can find a cleaner energy solution that underpins our key economic resources and our growth in Western Australia, then we actually have the opportunity to demonstrate to the world that it is possible. And we can provide our global trade partners with green resource alternatives like green steel. Now, Curtin is actually well positioned to accelerate the path to net zero, situated amongst Western Australia's wealth of renewable energy and critical minerals and our world-renowned mining expertise. Critical minerals research and producing a skilled workforce is fundamental to everything that we do at Curtin. Our global networks also mean that we can engage not only within Australia, but across the world on this very important issue. So, in essence, what role do universities like Curtin play? Supporting the transition to a clean energy future is something that we at Curtin are very, very passionate about. And it's reflected in our university strategic plan, which centers our ethos that through partnership, we will make a difference to our planet and our people. We recognize that the only future is a sustainable future. And through our university's teaching, research, and partnerships, we are in a unique position to contribute to a cleaner, greener, and more sustainable world. Now, meaningful partnerships and collaboration are the foundation for why we are all here today. And it is through partnership that we are able to amass the combined capital and brain power to accelerate the development of new technologies that are needed for a clean energy transition. The Africa Green Hydrogen Hub, launched here last year in Nairobi as a partnership between Strathmore University and Griffith University and Curtin University in Australia, is an excellent example of an academic collaboration that is designed to tackle a shared global climate and emissions challenge. Through this, the Hub, we have submitted an Australian Awards Fellowship application, and we are starting to work with Strathmore to develop a joint green hydrogen program. We anticipate that our collaboration in Africa will continue to strengthen through Curtin's Centre for Australia-African Relations, which is currently leading the development of a multinational and multidisciplinary research project on Australia-African science diplomacy, including contributions to a number of Kenyan scholars and through our co-chairing of the Australia-African Universities Network, which has an energy transition as one of its core priority research themes. Now, in Western Australia, Curtin University serves an important role in connecting government ambition and funding with industry needs and investment and the knowledge and expertise of our researchers. Key national centers like the Curtin-led Resources and Technology and Critical Minerals Trailblazer has attracted over $100 million in direct industry funding from over 50 industry partners. It will add significant value to the critical minerals and hydrogen energy value chains, and the National Future Batteries Industries Cooperative Research Center, based at Curtin, brings together over 70 research, industry, and government participants across 15 unique projects valued at over $120 million. Our projects are diverse, seeking to address a range of real-world problems faced by industry, governments, and the communities in which we live, work, and play. For example, our researchers are exploring how we can overcome barriers to hydrogen export, how we can use biomass to produce green iron, how we can improve the entire value chain of batteries from mining through to reuse and recycling. How can we reduce energy loss in natural gas producing processing? How can we minimize corrosion to reduce global steel production, which accounts for 9% of global emissions? And finally, how can we optimize data for artificial intelligence-driven analysis to improve environmental monitoring and evidence-based decision-making in mineral extraction? One very important area of research that I would like to highlight is the work of our Curtin Institute for Energy Transition, which is bringing together researchers, students, industry, and the community across diverse disciplines and providing thought leadership that ensures that we can make a safe, fair, and equitable transition to a clean energy future. They are currently collaborating with over 30 universities around the world and organizations across 6 of the 7 world continents, including Africa, to better understand energy inequality that exists within low-income communities of the Global South and the prevalence of plastic waste use as a fuel source. These projects each harness the power of partnership through our Hub for Critical Minerals and Clean Energy Research in Western Australia and our global networks. Partnering to find a sustainable solution is something that we also strive to engender in our students. Curtin's Student Sustainability Challenge fosters teamwork to problem solve on themes such as net zero and circular economy, and helps students to develop a sense of agency towards positive change. Last year, we took the challenge globally with a team of students from across our 6 Indian Ocean Rim campuses, including our African campus in Mauritius. All of these students joined forces to tackle a critical sustainability issue. Now, this brings me to another fundamental area of climate action for Curtin University: educating a new generation of energy professionals. It's important to acknowledge that to succeed, we also need to equip the next generation, our future workforce, with the skills to adapt to and harness new technologies, to innovate, and to do it with sustainability and ethics in mind. Over 15,000, or 1/4 of Curtin's 60,000 student body, are enrolled in a unit that includes curriculum to develop their entrepreneurial, innovation, and enterprise skill sets and mindset. We've implemented progressive courses such as a new Bachelor of Innovation to help students learn how to innovate ethically, engage globally, and use technology to deliver solutions with positive social and industry impacts. Our Planet Positive certificate teaches students how to champion positive environmental change. We've also transformed our undergraduate degrees to equip our engineering graduates for emerging areas such as sustainable engineering, renewable energy, advanced manufacturing, and space science. For example, our new Bachelor of Energy Engineering is the first of its kind in Australia, designed to produce the next generation of engineers for the energy transition. As a global university, Curtin is committed to global education. And as with our research, we have the opportunity to partner in transnational education for global energy transition. Curtin's Malaysia campus has developed a Bachelor of Environmental Engineering, which we will soon be adopting at our Western Australian campuses. In the last 12 months, we've also successfully delivered the Australia Awards Africa Executive Education course on financing climate action, with 25 participants from across a range of African countries, including Kenya. The participants were exposed to expertise across Curtin's Australian and international networks. They were engaged with the Australian government agency experts and interacted with African heads of mission in Australia to promote Australia-Africa science diplomacy. So as we mark the 60 years of Australia-Kenya diplomatic relations, I look forward to many, many more years and many, many more opportunities for Curtin University and our Kenyan and other African partners to work together across education and research for a fair and just energy transition. And perhaps one day we might decarbonize the world. Thank you.
One day. But in Kenya, the target is 2030. So in 5 years. All right. So we need to, as we get into the panel discussion, we need to renew our energy. I know, that joke landed in that row. Please, let's get the panelists here, and then we'll just also all face the room, see whether we're all on the same page with understanding where we are with the conversation, and then we'll jump into ours, right? When we call the person, kindly give them a warm round of applause. Catherine Irura, Managing Director of Sowitech Kenya. Sit right there. The Hydrogen Hub is also well represented. I'm sure you're pretty happy about that. Matthew Tilliard, co-founder, managing partner, Cross Boundary Group, Investment Advisory and Asset Management. Professor Israel De Silva, Deputy VC, and of course, within research and innovation at his core. And then a friend of mine, Wangari Mushiri, Director of Africa at the Global Wind Energy Council. All right, thank you, panelists. And I'm George Indirango, so I'll be hosting the conversation. But let's take a quick second. Kindly, if you can, please raise your hands like this. We're going to play a game. Please don't get tired. We're going to play a game called Put Your Finger Down. All right? We had this before in the last one. We just want to make sure that we're still on track. Put a finger down if you've used electricity this morning and you're 100% sure it was renewable. Oh, wow, sir. Put a finger down if you've experienced a power interruption in the last month. Makes you appreciate the value of consistent energy, huh? Okay. Put a finger down if you think Kenya's goal for 100% renewable energy is overly ambitious. Realistic? Okay. Put a finger down if you've heard of the term just transition. Did you put your finger down? What does it mean? There we go. See? Be ready. It's a small room. We see everyone. Put a finger down if you know who should be at the forefront of clean energy business and decision making. Who? Everyone, particularly youth and women. Fantastic. And communities. Fantastic. Put a finger down. We're almost done. Just 3 more. Put a finger down if you think the biggest hurdle to green hydrogen becoming a game changer in Africa or Australia is not necessarily the money, but policy. Okay. Put a finger down if you've ever thought, my small actions for energy, like switching off my internet, is contributing. So just leave your lights on. Put a finger down if you came here today genuinely excited for a conversation and hearing something different that you've not heard before. That was a trick question. Put all your fingers down. Thank you. So, again, I'll remind everyone in the room, please prepare your questions. We'll come to you in about 15 or 20 minutes so that we can hear as much as possible from the people in the room. Normally, with most panel discussions, we normally start the conversation by asking someone, introduce yourself, introduce your organization. As you can already tell by now, we're not going to do that. We'll do it a bit differently. But just for context, the green energy transition conversation is more than just a headline. It's a really serious multi-trillion-dollar seismic shift within both regions and globally as well. We've heard about the $2 trillion investment that's happening globally within the energy space, at least to move within that transition. We've heard about Kenya's targets by 2030. Right? And the $2 trillion investment, at least for the next 25 years. We've heard about what's happening in the innovation and research space in Australia. We've heard about Africa as a clean energy powerhouse. So what we aim to do with this panel is to just unpack those conversations a bit more. My question to you, we'll start off here and then we'll go to the rest all the way to Wangari, and then we'll kick off with now our questions. In the form of an intro, as you introduce yourself and your work, if your work or your organization's work was a headline in 2030, what would the headline say?
Wow. I think the headline would say renewable energy revolutionizing industries around the globe. So my name is Catherine Irura. I'm the Managing Director of Suitech Kenya. We are part of a bigger group that is in the renewable energy development space, developing wind, solar, and green hydrogen projects. So energy is my bread and butter, and I've been working in this space for the past 8 years.
Fantastic. Thank you. Sets the pace. Matthew, no pressure.
Great. G'day. So I'm Matt Tilliard. I'm actually Australian, and I've been living here in Kenya for the last 8 years. So I'm a living embodiment of our partnership, and I've got a deep love for both places. So I run a company called Cross Boundary Group. We build businesses that unlock private capital to drive sustainable development. And I spend most of my time on our 2 renewable energy businesses. Cross Boundary Energy sells solar and storage directly to businesses. So it's on-site solar and storage financed by us. And we are kind of like a distributed utility that sends you a power bill from your roof. And so that we do that for businesses. And then we also have Cross Boundary Access, which does the same thing using the same technologies, but for communities. So partners with local developers to build solar storage mini grids in communities that don't have electricity. And bring them power for the first time that's completely clean electrons. So we are at the sort of forefront of the distributed renewable revolution, and I think that this continent is the most exciting place for that revolution because of the impact that we can have with these technologies.
What would that headline be?
Oh, yeah. I think my headline would be the great distribution of power has happened.
I like the double entendre, great distribution of power. Prof?
Good? Yeah, I hope you discounted that the moment of switching on. Okay, what I would say, it was said here that if you want to have something happening, you have to put together academia, the private sector, and government. And it's interesting that it's called triple helix. Each one of these, they have gifts that the other two do not. And when you put them together, that's it. So Curtin University, Griffith University, Strathmore University, those, they are universities. And then really they have to play a very important role in this transformation, the transition, sustainable energy transition. 15 years ago, our Vice Chancellor was not Dr. Vincent, he was probably doing his PhD in the United States, but here there was Professor John Odhiambo, and I was working across the boundary in Uganda, Makerere, and then he asked me whether I would like to join here, and says, I want you to do two things for us, only two. One, begin engineering, and then the other is put Strathmore in the map of green energy. So it was thinking now, but this was quite strategic, quite strategic, being that he's a mathematician, not an engineer. So now, 15 years down the line, we actually have some good stuff here that can help people to get trained to be part of this green revolution. And so we start, for instance, Strathmore Energy Research Center. We do consultancy, we do research, we do quality, and we train people. So if the system is that if this gentleman here gives his grandmother in the village a solar system, and the nearest guy who can repair that thing is about 100 kilometers away, is doing a disservice to the madam, you see. So we together did the Strathmore Energy Research. Then the engineering, it came, thank God, this year we've been accredited by Washington, that Washington Accord, that this engineering is very green and very useful for the whole planet. So I don't know if you want me to stop here.
Prof, if that is your intro, let me say the headline for you, right?
Okay.
Strathmore University renews green commitment.
Yeah, sounds good.
You're welcome. It's not even trademarked. You could take that one.
Perfect.
Wangari, let's please come to you.
I'm laughing because when they said you want to stop there, Jenny nodded. I think our headline, so I work for the Global Wind Energy Council and the Global Renewables Alliance, which is the global body for renewable energy, bringing together wind, solar, hydropower, green hydrogen, long duration energy storage, and have I missed one? Wind. How can I forget wind? And so we are literally the body that speaks as a single voice for renewable energy globally. And I think our headline would say we doubled down and tripled up. And the reason we would say that is because the quickest way to decarbonize the industry, or globally, the industry by 2030, is to double down on energy efficiency and triple up on renewables. And that's why I would say that.
Fantastic, very clear. All right, since you've wrapped up that first round brilliantly, let's come back to you, Wangari. We have, if we were to unpack the number of layers and even go around the room, pointing out what the issues are within this space, we'd have many. Policy, investment, innovation. But because of the people in the room, half of whom are students, and we intend to see a lot more projects come to the forefront, businesses that get stuck in the pilot phase. Let's talk about that for a bit. What are some of those systemic barriers when we're trying to push things to practicality and to execution and scale that you feel we can prioritize for even the people in the room to have that in mind as they come up with solutions?
That's a great question. So I didn't really fully introduce myself. I'm Kenyan and Australian as well. I went to university at UNSW and UTS, not in Western Australia, but in New South Wales, and lived in Canberra for many years, managing Australian federal government buildings and making them more sustainable and bringing renewable energy onto these buildings. And also started the first solar program for one of the biggest banks in Australia called Commonwealth Bank.
Please, round of applause, please.
And thank you. And I remember when I was doing my Bachelor of Engineering in Renewable Energy at UNSW, there was nothing to do. I mean, I'm going to say this very undiplomatically, sorry, guys. Renewable energy was not sexy at all, right? People, I remember people making fun of me that I was going to university to learn how to climb a roof, right? And to put, glass things on a roof, right? And it was just, what is this solar thing? What is this renewable energy thing? And this, is decades ago now. And so when I think about it and think how far renewable energy has come, it's a fantastic journey to see even Strathmore come up and be really a leader in this sector. And actually one of my professional courses is from Strathmore. So I've also been to Strathmore. So I think I have a right to talk a little bit around this topic. In terms of barriers, and this is something that has been in the industry for the last 15 years that I've worked in it, financing has been a big one. And we're seeing here in Africa that Africa only gets 2% of all global financing into renewable energy. So when you talk to the big development banks, whether it's African Development Bank, whether you talk to your commercial providers, I remember when I first moved back to Kenya, and actually I hadn't moved back yet, I was commuting back and forth between Australia and Kenya, and I went to one of the big banks here, I'm not going to mention names, and I said, I want to put a solar system, I want to start a solar company and put solar systems on people's roofs. And they were like, what is that? And we can't give you, what is this technology? And we don't know how to price this, we don't know how to cost this, we don't even know what rate we would give you. And unfortunately, in the last 10 years, this has not changed much, right? So now you have fantastic companies like CrossBoundary and others who are able to do this at a large scale for commercial and industrial users. But even the fundraising that they have to do is phenomenal, right? Because there's not a lot of funding within this space in Africa. And in addition to that, we've seen technology come so far. We've seen the cost of solar, the cost of wind come down so much. From when I was in university, it's come down 10 times. And so it literally is become the cheapest source. I think, Jenny, you said this, the cheapest source of energy on the planet. And it's just mind-blowing to me that the poorest people in the world don't have access to this because of lack of money and finance. So I don't want to take I know there's policy and there's others that my panelists will talk on, but financing really is a big challenge.
And since you mentioned it, let's come to Matthew, because capital is one thing, but affordable capital is another. And it feels a bit unfair when the continent is entirely blessed with all these renewable sources, but we can't actually tap in because of a very crucial, pivotal thing. So speak to us about that capital aspect as part of the systemic barriers.
Yeah, I think I would just agree as well that the old barrier used to be the competitiveness of these technologies. When I was in Kenya in 2015 trying to sell factories solar power, I was like, okay, well, we can save you money over 20 years, or we can save you 10% on 30% of your electricity bill if you sign this very complicated contract. So we got nowhere. But now, the technology, because this energy transition is powered by technology, not fuel. So we keep getting better and better at making it and driving down the cost of these inputs. And so now, I haven't become more charismatic, but we are selling just an enormous amount more. And so the problem has transitioned from competitiveness to capital. And so we've raised, probably over $550 million across our two platforms. And we are beginning to hit the ceiling of what we can unlock from development finance-oriented investors. So we need to make a transition now to, Brookfield or TPG or, big private investors. But, I've sat in Brookfield's office in London, and they said, this is terrific. We love what you're doing. Could you do it in Spain? Because if you did this in Spain, we would give you like a blank check. But we can't do Africa. And this is a $15 billion energy transition fund. And so, like, we do have a problem, which is we can get to a certain level of scale with the IFC and AFDB and, FMO and DG and this acronym soup of DFIs.
Just one thing there, we did have a thought last time. Whenever someone says an acronym, they owe all of us $10. No acronyms. We have to all fully understand what's happening, right? So Matthew, you're on the clock.
Right.
Yeah.
This has become very expensive. So yeah, give me your M-Pesa numbers and I'll deal with it. Yeah, these are the development finance banks of European and American primarily countries, which are set up specifically to unlock capital into developing countries, and most of them have a focus on Africa. But they are ultimately government organizations, not private investors, and we will not hit the scale. We won't bring electricity to the 600 million people who don't have it. We won't unlock growth by providing reliable and affordable power. We can do that with the technologies we have, but we need billions and billions of dollars, and that doesn't come from development finance institutions. It comes from private investors, and we need that attitude to shift.
I know Wangari wanted to...
Yeah, I just wanted to just say a comment to what Matt said. Guys, 80% of the panels in the world come from one place, which is mainly China, right? Unfortunately, the cost of capital that when you put that panel in Africa versus when you put it in Spain can literally be 30 times more, right? And it's the same technology. And what makes it worse is we have more sun, so the panel will work better, there's more UV. We have better capacity factors on wind, so the turbines will work better, but we get charged a lot more for cost of capital, even if the technology is the same. So that's just to emphasize what Matt was saying in terms of the capital structure. So I'll just leave that.
So we do, so critically a very crucial policy conversation as well. One of the things that has been mentioned, and I know we'll get into the conversation on waste a bit later, but what forms part of your pain points with these barriers?
I would say we have a lot of idle assets we can utilize, especially looking at the green hydrogen economy. We have, from the statistics from EPRA, in Kenya alone, like the past year, 511 gigawatt hours of electricity, which is 7.1% of the energy generated in the country, was not utilized between midnight and 4 a.m. And you can imagine utilizing that power to produce hydrogen and go to commodities such as green fertilizer, which is needed in the country, methanol, which we use in our lives to make paints, acetone and other chemicals, sustainable aviation fuel. So I feel we can utilize a lot of these resources in the country, capturing carbon dioxide also from geothermal production and other organic wastes to be able to produce green fuels. And Kenya has these targets, and there's a big opportunity we're missing out. And I like the partnerships that we are having here in academia that can build skills development around this. Even trade relationships, seeing how we can get technology into the country. I know Australia has been doing a lot in electrolyzer manufacturing and planning for that. So these are things we can tap into that can benefit private sector, they can benefit the local industries here, and even commodities such as cooking fat, which need hydrogen, cement manufacturing. We can stop using gray sources of hydrogen from natural gas and transition into our own domestic production. So that's what I see as an opportunity, and we are missing out on it.
Okay, so that sets the pace. We've heard from three, Wangari, Matthew, and Catherine, but Prof, I'd like to hear from you, since within research you continue to interrogate every layer within this conversation. What are the consistent barriers that you think we're still taking too long to get past?
Right. Now what I want to say...
Closer.
What I want to say is just give you an example of something that is happening before our eyes. And then I say that what could be the solution, yeah, regarding Africa. So the first thing that I want to say is a comparison. The Africa is about 30 million square kilometer, has 54 countries, yeah, and has a lot of natural resources, yes, and including the sun, that 60% of the potential of solar energy is here, not in Amsterdam. Yeah, so yeah, that's the thing. Now, when you join together these 1.4 billion people, these 54 countries, with all the natural resources and the beauty of everything, you say, wow, this, let's see how much is the size of this economy. And then you sum them all, the 54 countries GDP, and then you find that all these are, this GDP together is smaller than the GDP of France, which is the 7th economy in the planet. So now, how does this kind of thing happen? It is because there is a lack of electricity for 650 million or more, yeah? And then people don't have the money to install solar, because I'm asking that individual to pay for his electricity bill for the next 5 years in one go. It can't. So we have to be aware of that we need, I advise for Enel, which is one of the biggest companies of energy in the planet. They have enough transmission lines to go to the moon and back 2 times. Yeah. Now, they announced just now that the 80 giga installations that we are going to have before this year ends. That was it. I say, wow, they are coming to Africa, isn't it? You have that deficit there. Guess what? Not a single watt of that is coming to Africa. They are going to United States and Canada. So I think we talk a lot, but it is important to realize that unless this finance thing comes in and help the people to, I never paid for poles, for transformer, for having my power in my house. No, but I paid per unit, isn't it? This is what it has to happen, and then we shall be the continent of the future, no? Otherwise, they'll say Africa is the continent of the future, and always will be. No, it is wrong.
Yeah, we need now, the continent of now. You're right. So let's speak here between Matthew and Catherine. Let me give an example of the automotive industry. A lot of development happened. We saw autonomous cars. We saw cars, just operated entirely green and tech-based, where no driver. But then all of a sudden something happened, and we're now seeing rogue cars crash into streets, lack of understanding of tech on that, but things like that. And this is replicated within different sectors. Within the energy sector, what's one of those secondary shockwaves that's going to hit the world, either good or bad, and how should we brace for it within this green energy shift? We're shifting very quickly, but we need to really brace for any shockwave that might come, either good or bad.
I can go first. We already experiencing this in the transport sector, looking at Maersk, for example, shipping industries already developing methanol-powered ships and fleets which are operational, and basically Africa, Kenya, all the countries that have a coastline need to prepare for that, because there's a global shift in the way production is being done for green fuels, and the fuel industry. There's going to be increasing demands because the policy frameworks are also enabling this to have low carbon fuels. So that's one area in the green hydrogen economy that we are already seeing has taken root and is moving fast. And basically Africa needs to catch up. And With that comes the opportunity for a pipeline, and we already have developers in private sector who are developing green fuel projects, sustainable aviation fuel, and green fertilizer. These products are imported into the country, and basically we have an opportunity to set up these industries in Kenya and substitute most of our imports, creating these domestic industries here. So we have these blueprints in all of the Eastern African countries, your Vision 2030, that looks at setting up textile industries, setting up industries basically. But this hydrogen economy I see for Kenya would be a game changer because we already have pilot projects. Even at larger scale, you wouldn't call them pilot, 300 megawatt green fertilizer production, and much bigger scale of sustainable aviation fuel, 1 gigawatt almost. So that will be a game changer, and we are moving from electricity to commodities. So that's how I see the evolution happening, and it's already started.
All right. Matthew, you want to go? Thank you for that.
Yeah, I think the second, third order effect that I would highlight is, this is the first energy transition from a fuel to technology, and there's two secrets that come out of it being a technology. The first we've already kind of mentioned, and it has come up a few times, which is the more you make of it, the cheaper it gets, the better we get at manufacturing it. And that is a unique feature of technology that's not true of fuel, but it is true of solar and wind and batteries. And so that's the first secret, but I think people are beginning to understand that. The second secret, I think, is more interesting and less well understood, which is because the efficiencies are happening in the factory and not at the point of installation, it's going to transform the way that our energy system evolves. So when you build a 1 gigawatt solar plant, the cost per watt is not much different. It's 10, 20% lower than if I go and I build a 1 megawatt solar plant. Does that make sense? So if you think about that, it costs 20 to 50% of the cost of generating electricity to transport it, to transmit it and distribute it. So it's actually cheaper. The cheaper way to get solar power is to put it on your roof, put it in your backyard. The cheaper way to store energy is to put it in your garage. And so that is going to fundamentally transform our energy system from a centralized pipe, from sources of generation through to millions of nodes of consumption, to a big stock exchange, essentially, of millions of nodes of generation, millions of nodes of storage, millions of nodes of consumption. And that is, I think in Africa that's extremely exciting because it's fundamentally democratizing. And on this continent, Africa has the inputs to have brought electricity to everybody. We know how to generate power. We have the technology. The capital, for those large-scale projects has, been available. But it's been the bet on top-down change, centralized change, has failed. But now we have a different mechanism. We have a bottom-up, decentralized mechanism of solving this problem, and I think it's going to be super exciting, and most exciting here.
Okay, you've alluded to something. Wangari, let me come to you. When we were saying put a finger down, one of the things you mentioned was community. We're moving into an age over the next couple of years where we'll see a lot more AI into the space, smart grids, you name it. So a lot of advancement in tech. But within the city, we have conversations such as cyber threats, for example. And then outside, the further you go outside the city, we have inequity in how tech or electricity is distributed. So speak to us about that, the advancement in tech within the space, which will help a huge population, but also might end up really segmenting who needs to get it more. Just would like to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such an interesting space that is really developing from electrifying a lot of things. And to Matt's point around democratizing energy, if we could, let's say, borrow energy like we borrow a cup of sugar from our neighbor, right? It would be super easy. So I'll give you an example. One of the projects I worked on when I was at HEVOS was an innovative project using blockchain to help enable trading of energy between people. So you have a solar system on a school. Maybe the school's not operational on Saturday and Sundays. People are home. They need some extra energy. The school can make extra money. Blockchain technology makes them paid directly into their M-Pesa because they have excess power on their roof and the sun still shines. So it's easy, it's simple. And this goes further than just a school and a household. Imagine the nursing unit at night that now can access batteries to cool vaccines or to enable people to give birth at night and there's light. Imagine being able to say, I am going to charge my car if I have an EV. I'm not going to charge it at home, but I'm going to charge it at work. And when I go home, the car can then charge my house. So there's a lot of technology around this space that is really kind of emerging, and it's just fantastic to see because it's some things you never even thought would happen. So when you think of the AI, and to come to your question around AI and technology, there's so much now that we can do with big data, with machine learning, with all this technology that's emerging now that is making it all go faster, quicker, better, easier, right? And so now it's not just a matter of one school and one household and one small mini grid, but imagine if I'm like, Georgie, you have extra power at your house, I need some extra power, you can sell it cheaper than Matt can, and it's all automatically done on the grid. We don't even need to worry. Don't tell Kenya Power I said this, but you don't even need to worry about the utility, right? It's all done automatically. It will debit my M-Pesa. You will get money. Next time when Matt's cheaper, he's on holiday, he doesn't need to use his energy, I'll buy from him, right? And this is really, really, really exciting. Now, I've just come from a study tour in China where we took the Office of the President to see some of these advancements. And they already have a town, Tongli. It's a town that they're already starting to set up some of these interesting, innovations and technology advancements. So it's gone to the point where cars are now charging wirelessly as they drive. So you have an EV that I now told you I can charge at my office. I don't need to charge it at my office anymore because on my way to the office, it will charge as I'm driving, and then it will plug into the office. And when there's a power blackout, let's say in the city, it can actually provide demand-side management of the grid from all the cars that will exist, right? And it might not be here yet in Kenya where there's already penetration of EVs and that, but it's coming. Right? And we're seeing even in China, every second car is an EV. If that's already happening in one of the biggest markets in the world, in Africa, that's going to happen inevitably. In Australia, we're also seeing that adoption. So there's a lot of happening within this AI space. I honestly can talk, this is a whole other session around tech and AI, but I think it's just amazing to see what else is going on and how we can start to embrace. And for Africa, how we can leapfrog, because now we don't have to go through all the different systems of technologies and learn. And I mean, other countries have done that. So how do we go straight to the fantastic technologies that we can now start to build ecosystems around, like green hydrogen, like green fertilizer, green steel, all these other outputs? I think that's good.
Oh, what I'm hearing as well is, so we have the policy conversation, and even though they're a bit slower because it takes a lot of, loopholes to jump through, the idea that the private sector could also settle into the market might also challenge policymakers to start thinking a bit quicker. But you did mention people to people, so I'll come to you, Prof. One of the things that we were super keen on is energy literacy. Things like what we're learning now within this panel conversation, and of course, Wangari is a great ambassador, but we need 1 million Wangaris, right? To make sure that we also have proper energy shapers. And I know you like that term, energy shapers. But since you're right at the heart of it, on literacy, for example, what's an easier way to navigate as we get to the harder way to navigate literacy around energy? It's you.
I was thinking how she's going to answer that. But there is something I really think I have to say to 30 seconds is that you have to be doing something. You yourself, look at a mirror if you have one. Yeah, that one. You have to do something. For instance, the idea that the solar system he gave to the grandmother, it has to be something. You can't take petrol to your grandmother over the Easter or Christmas. No, you have to do something. Now, for instance, a small solar system that you can buy in China Square, and then you take her, she is going to charge her Mulika Mwizi, no more having to cycle to town, isn't it? And she is going to take a picture of the goat she is going to kill when you come for Christmas. You see, that's the thing. If you don't have anything coming out of this room here with no idea what you can do, you miss the bus, you see? And then, now in 1 minute, 4 Ds. The first D is decarbonization. I read a document saying the 12 seats that are going to go underwater because of the global warming. You know? So, they are for real. So, the decarbonization is a very important D. And then Strathmore has a 0.6 mega. We don't create carbon emission to teach the kids, but we should do a lot more. Decarbonization. The second D is decentralization. You see, the problem is that we produce here in Naivasha electricity, and then we consume in Kisumu, and then has to pass via Narok and the other place, I don't know the name, you see? Yes, and eventually when you get there, it's like you buy 100 eggs. When you arrive there, 30 eggs, done. Because of the losses. Transmissions loss, distribution losses. So what we are saying, now that is affordable, you get something for your power produced here, consumed here. It is not a theory. We put a T-factory, a system there, which has 4 mega battery and 1.5 mega solar. So they threw away 1 mega Cummins generator, and they told Kenya Power, you are now a backup. You see, decentralization, this has to be, and it is happening, and people are doing good business. The third D is digitalization. Each and every equipment of your power system has to have a digital twin. Why is it? Digital twin is the one you have in here that I can switch on, switch off, increase the resistance here and there from here. Being 10,000 miles away, doesn't matter, yeah? And then this is the digital twin. And the fourth D is democratization. You have to give it to everyone. It's a right to have electricity and not to, have nothing to do because electricity is not there, get brewing some changa and do nothing. Thank you.
I've never seen someone so embedded in Kenya's, what happens outside the city than Prof. So we have, let's say it together, the first D, decarbonization. The second one? The third one? Fourth? All right, we're still alert. There was one thing that was mentioned before we come to the audience. Please prepare your questions. We're coming to you now. Waste. So there's waste of electricity, but there's also waste of the hard bit of it. Panels, grids, we've seen them thrown away when you're done with its cycle. So how are we navigating this conversation? Maybe you could give us your perspective on moving that waste into a core asset.
Okay, there's already innovation around this for batteries particularly. There's a company in the UK called Acceleron that's already producing battery components that can be monitored on the back end using software to monitor their rates of degradation, and they're able to prolong their life to almost 25 years. So we can see innovation driving change in that space. Also, basically scale also matters. Instead of all of us having small solar panels on our rooftops, she talked about the spot market. If you're able to do energy planning strategically, we can be able to leverage on auctions for renewable energy projects and benefit from scale. Being able to borrow from your neighbor, cheap hydropower, and other sources of energy without necessarily having a fragmented energy market is also one of the things I see. I also want to give you an example of the project I'm developing at Soitec. It's an 8,000 ton per annum green methanol project. And we are capturing carbon dioxide, which is basically emitted in geothermal production, cleaning it using activated charcoal and combining it with green hydrogen from geothermal power to produce methanol. And in that whole process, we have oxygen as a byproduct of production, which can be purified to different levels and be sold to hospitals. There's waste heat that can be used as well. So we are co-located in an industrial park where there are fish ponds as well. So you can be able to give this heat. It's used to heat fish ponds. Heat is used in many processes, like even food and beverage manufacturing. So you can be able to use the waste heat for that purpose. Also, sulfur cakes are one of the byproducts of methanol production, and you can be able to sell that to a cement manufacturing company to be able to use it in terms of their heating purposes. So there are many ways in which if you develop a project, you can be able to leverage on those resources and create value out of it. Yeah, and in the process of manufacturing of methanol as well, the CO2 capture also is one of the ways that can be leveraged to get carbon finance. So that improves your business model for your project. And it's working already in Kenya. There are some companies like Cocoa Networks who are leveraging on carbon finance to make the fuel and the cook stove affordable for clients. So these are things we need to think about, and strategically location of these projects in areas like industrial parks where you can be able to share resources with other industries.
That was a nice use case for a circular economy. Thank you for that. Please shoot your hand up if you have a question. 1, 2, 3. Oh. All right. We have 20 minutes. We have actually 15 minutes. So we'll make them, and I can see all of you. So if the microphone comes to you, actually, let me do it myself. You have 20 seconds for the question. You could let us know your name and who you want to address.
Yeah, thank you very much. My name is Odhiambo Odawa. I teach at Tech University of Kenya. And I'm the first group which Professor Da Silva brought here for solar in 2014. So we are the first group of trainees under Professor Da Silva. Now, I'm practicing, Da Silva said, we looked at ourselves in a mirror. I've already looked at myself in the mirror. And I'm wearing biogas. I was also taught here under Professor Da Silva, biogas. That's why I'm putting on this hat. And I apologize. It's against the etiquette of Strathmore to wear caps. But I have a reason to do it. Yeah. So thank you very much, Professor Da Silva and Professor Vincent Ogutu, for all what you have done for all of us. We are disciples, and use that word in quotes. We are disciples of Strathmore under Professor Da Silva for renewable energy. We are actually practicing game changing, and it's continuous. So 2030 is too far. It will be very soon, sooner than 2030, given acceleration speed which we have acquired from Strathmore University under Professor Da Silva and Strathmore University. It may be earlier. This is just a compliment. The question will come later. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thanks for the submission. Please, let's come here.
So, my name is Alvin, Professor Da Silva student. We are the first cohort of engineering. And my question is to you, Professor. You had said something about Enel having a strategic plan.
What's Enel?
It's a software, it's an energy company. Yeah. So you'd spoken about Enel having a strategic, one of the strategic goals, and they're expanding into Canada and America. And if I got your statement right, you are suggesting that for Africa to grow as well in terms of energy sufficiency, we need companies like Enel, so one of the largest energy producers in the world. And I personally take issue with that. Sorry, this may be controversial, but I personally take issue with that, especially as an engineering student myself. Do we always need foreign investment, foreign expertise? Why can't we as well have our own motivation? Especially because I'm an engineering student, so it's a bit disheartening as well to hear. Maybe I got the question wrong, but that is my question.
Nothing gives me more joy than seeing Gen Z in a room. Thank you. Keep challenging. Do you want to take that and then we go to the next question? Let me go that side and I'll come back. Please.
I answer that.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Okay, very well. So thank you so much. The idea is what we had mentioned before, that you do something for yourself and for your community, you know. And then I challenge a bit this thing of availability of green funds, affordable money to do things, because I haven't found many people who were able to profit from that and do something. So I'm still waiting to see. But you as an individual, whatever you can do, you have to do, because this validates you as an example to be followed, you see. So this is important. I say people have to stop being this NATO, no action, talk only. You see, because it becomes really, yeah, even Nazi, no action, zero impact. Yeah, so that's what you need to do. Do it yourself, even if it is very little. You say, I'm doing my little. It's the hummingbird of your mom, you remember? Yes, it's little, but she's doing something, and I have to do something as well. Thank you.
Maybe
yes.
to also respond, being in private sector in Kenya as well, I totally echo your sentiments. And one of the things that our development partners have been doing is investing in skilling us in the industry. My background is in law, to be honest. I know I've talked here like an engineer, but I'm a beneficiary of that local training, because at the end of the day, we want to create these direct jobs for you guys here in the room. You've spent a lot of time in school, and having access to these training opportunities prepares you for the market where we'll have these projects in operation. So it's one of the things we see being really necessary. And being able to have training facilities for us to access these skills and be able to disseminate them to you, and for you to also have access to these skilling opportunities, because at the end of the day, these jobs will be here, and most industries in Kenya employ Kenyans, work permits. There are many other issues around this. So developers, EPC companies invest a lot of time in training local graduates for this, or any technical people who will be involved in implementation of the projects.
Ideally, what I was hearing you say as well is financially, we'd need to also house that here. So a consortium of African finance players, development players, but the money coming from the continent, right? Financing the expertise as well. Okay, yes?
Can I also add, I think we need to look at it a bit differently. When I spoke earlier about China having 80% of the world's renewable energy supply chain, it didn't start in China. It actually started in Australia. I remember in my university, one of my lecturers was moved to be a CTO of one of the first solar companies in China. This was back in the day when there was really nothing, right? And they took Australian technology from this university, took it to China, and China scaled it. Now China has 1,000 engineers for every one engineer we have here, much more than Australia has, right? So it's really what you make of the collaboration, the knowledge sharing, the financing. I don't think it's we need to do it one way or the other. It's about how we, and you know Africans, we've seen M-Pesa, we've innovated around M-Pesa, and look, now even the unbanked in the most remote villages in Kenya have a bank or access to financial systems. So we can innovate. Once we get these technologies, once we get the financing, there's a lot that we can do around it. So it's not an either-or conversation, I think it's an and the collaboration really can spur us even further. We can leapfrog. I know people hate this word, but we definitely can leapfrog and go beyond what is there.
Thank you, Wangari, thank you. So we'll go row by row, huh?
Good afternoon. My name is Ted Kiania from the Next Gen Policy Institute. My question goes to Wangari. You said that the cost of setting up solar in Africa is way higher than that in Europe. So how can we bring that cost down, especially now that we have the Africa Continental Free Trade Area? How can we leverage that and bring production of these green solutions back to Africa, because the raw materials come from Africa? My other question goes to Matt. We have a problem in climate financing and green energy in Africa. So my question is, how can we make it attractive for domestic investors to invest in clean energy? Because like right now, KETRACO is trying to get funds from the domestic market for the transmission lines after the Adani deal failed, but it has proved to be really challenging. So how can we make it attractive for local investors, because there's money in Kenya, to invest in these solutions? Thank you.
Thank you. Just to know that your row, the two questions have been eaten up. We'll come to this row. Please, Wangari, Matt?
Yeah, I'm happy to take on the manufacturing and supply chain question. And I feel like this is 50% of my job nowadays, how to localize supply chains and bring manufacturing into Africa. One of the big challenges is we don't have the scale yet. We met Jinko. Jinko is the #1 solar supplier in the world. And, we went in confidently, Office of the President, we're solid, Kenya delegation, we're ready for manufacturing in Kenya. And so we said, we need a factory in Kenya. We need jobs created in Kenya. And they said, okay, Kenya, well, Africa as a whole is 1% of our whole demand. So everything they supply in the world, Africa as a whole is 1%. 50% of that 1% is South Africa. Kenya is not even a dot on their graph, right? So how can we be demanding manufacturing and all that? And I think that now comes back to the policymakers, back to the local players to say, how do we put policy in place that really encourages solar uptake? How do we say all our schools, all our hospitals, all our public government buildings need to have solar? How do we encourage homes to have solar? I remember at the beginning, my first ever job in Australia was in a renewable energy engineering company, and we're doing solar home systems. And the way the uptake of the solar home systems was being done was that the government was giving upfront rebates for solar. So you literally get a discount up the front of your solar system, which makes it cheaper, but because the government is going to reimburse the companies. So we need to have that policy, and I don't know if we've really talked about policy as much here on the panel, but it's really, really key so that we move that 1% to 2%, 3%, 5%, and then we can say, let's start to manufacture. To give you an idea, China is 50% of their demand. So 1% for all of Africa, its own domestic market is 50%. In terms of now reducing the cost of that, because we don't have the economies of scale, it means it's a bit more expensive to manufacture here. We need to start looking at local sources of income, and I think you alluded to this in your question to Matt. But pension funds have a lot of money. These technologies are mature. We need to find a way to make renewables sexy to pension funds. And the problem is that people like me, who are not finance people, are walking into the room to talk to pension funds about finance. They want to talk about green bonds, they want to talk about instruments, they want to talk about ways that to de-risk investments into renewables. We need to have those conversations, and that's why it's important a room like this is everybody's involved, because it's the finance people, the tech people, the policy people coming together to enable that price to come down. So I think your questions are fantastic, and really it's not, no one has one single answer. I think we all need to come together to enable that to happen.
Yeah, not on the question of how do we unlock local finance, or shouldn't we be relying on local finance? You've already touched on it a little bit, but yeah, it will be, the end state is clear, is we need to get to a place where we are unlocking local pension funds, local insurance funds into domestic renewable energy. But also bear in mind that if you do a chart of the cumulative carbon emissions of the world, Africa has produced almost none of it. So it's not this continent's obligation to solve the problem. It's the West and the developed world that benefited from those massive cumulative emissions over time. And there's an obligation for those governments, the acronym SOUP I was talking about before. I think it's a moral obligation to invest and provide a clean path to development. Because if the clean path to development has to be cheaper as well. We can't make this continent pay for the carbon we emitted. And so the question is like, I don't think it's sort of foreign or local. Developed countries should be putting huge amounts of climate finance into developing countries. The question is, how do they do it? At the moment, what we do as development banks, what they do is they put money in, make it like actually remarkably commercial in the way that they interact with someone like me. They really want to get a good return. And then I go to COP or I go to Davos and everyone's talking about climate finance and how much we're unlocking, but it's just being unlocked as a commercial investment. I think that there needs to be a radical rethink in our development finance infrastructure to say, actually, we're not going to make money. We're doing climate finance in this case to provide, to right an injustice, essentially, to do a just transition. And so we are going to put in junior capital, not senior debt. It's so easy for me to raise senior debt from these DFIs, but it's so hard to raise at-risk equity. And they should be coming into the market and saying, hey, we'll take the first $100 million loss. We'll take the same return, but if something goes wrong, we will wear it. And then that could really unlock local investment, because we can't expect local pension funds to take the risk on the clean path to development when the developed world should be taking that risk.
Thank you. I think my question has been a bit redundant because you've partly answered it. So my name is Esther Githenji. I'm an advocate of the High Court of Kenya and a legal analyst at AED Advisory. So we do a lot of research and analytics work. Recently doing a study on bankability of projects in various African countries. So that's where my question was headed with regards to de-risking. So we were looking at regulations, tariffs, the GDP of the countries, the access rate that the countries have, and the goals that they've set. We've said Africa at times, their goals set, I think in the M300, the compacts that are there are quite ambitious, and we were looking at that difference and seeing how bankable those countries are. So maybe my question will go to Matthew and even Wangari with regards to the projects that you've done in various countries. I know Cross Boundary has gone into various African countries that most investors have not gone to, like DRC. So how have you been able to de-risk and invest in that, and also bringing it full circle, how we can encourage private investors from other countries like Australia to see how de-risked some of the projects could be and attractive to foreign investment and also local investment that he alluded to. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the first point is that risk is often viewed in a monolithic way, like DRC, that's risky, when in fact risk is heterogeneous. I lived in Kabul for a year in Afghanistan. I didn't see a single thing go wrong. Like, I was just driving around a nice city with an interesting culture, and but if I'd been in Kandahar, my experience would have been radically different. So the first thing that we need to do when we're unlocking investment is we need to look specifically at where the capital is going, how it goes in, what we build, and how the capital comes out, and make a specific case for how we're going to manage all of these different risks. And there are good tools available to manage. The World Bank has MIGO. We're negotiating currently a portfolio level guarantee with them, which will protect us against political risk, currency convertibility issues. So that's a great instrument. That's an example of the kind of thing that I'm saying DFI should do more of. A small insurance product that unlocks actual real private investment. But yeah, I think my points are mainly what we do, the way we get comfortable with, a $50 million investment in southern Madagascar where there's no roads to get there, or a $220 million investment in southern DRC right now, with all of the things that are happening in DRC, is we look specifically at the actual risks we're taking, the actual returns we're getting, and we try to mitigate the risks and maximize the returns. But, maybe it's not going to work out. We don't know yet.
Yeah, to add on to that, I think one of the big things is the industry associations. So GWEC is trying to de-risk the projects across Africa. A lot of people don't know that you need to do 12 to 24 months of studies for wind before you even have a project, before you do a feasibility study. So we're trying to take this off the private sector and help and just kind of do it within the industry, and then do a roadshow to private sector and show where the resource is, where viable resources, which means it saves private sector 2 years of feasibility studies, putting met masts up, doing all these grid studies and things like that. So we're working with the IFC to do that, and I think some of these industry associations can really enable or support some of the risks. So whether it's community engagement, Matt's talked about political risk, right? If the community, we've seen a wind farm in Kenya collapse because of political risk, right? If there's a way that some of the industry bodies can go in and talk to the community and engage them beforehand, that could be really interesting and also reduce that risk that developers face. So there's quite a number of things, and I think as Matt's already covered it well, it's very very specific. We just need to support and do really things that can help the whole industry move forward as a whole.
One thing to add there is offtake. Before banks, even investors consider your projects, they want to see a light, for hydrogen projects particularly, they want to see a light letter of offtake. As you're doing your feasibility studies, that there's a route to market for your product, even for the electricity that's generated, if it's a pure renewable energy project. So that also improves your business case and de-risks maybe your project. Once you've done your feasibilities, that offtake needs to be more or less guaranteed.
Good afternoon. My name is Tamala Rayola. I am the founder of Zingira Organization. We advocate for sustainable and impactful climate action in Kenya and Africa at large. Wangari spoke about AI, and I think AI has become such a big part of our daily lives, especially the youth. But the energy consumption of AI data centers is a whole other conversation. So my question is, how can we shift to using renewable energy in these data centers to make it more sustainable? Thank you.
Yeah, the crazy thing is, the chief economist of ChatGPT, OpenAI, asked me the same question. And we all don't have the answer, right? AI is such an interesting, moving, dynamic thing right now. There's a lot happening within the sector. If you look at the size of the data centers that are going to be developed for AI, some of them are the size of Central Park in New York. Some of them are we met Tencent. Tencent is the biggest company in China by market capitalization. And some of these data centers they're talking about are the size of cities, right? So the amount of energy that's going to be needed is no doubt ridiculous. It's going to be crazy. I like to look at it from a different perspective. We're talking about financing of projects, of renewable projects, right? If we're able to build, let's say, a wind farm that powers a data center, and let's say 20% of that wind farm can be cheaper power for a community, I think that's an interesting way to start to balance the books, right? Or to de-risk some of the projects, because a developer will say, I have this solid data center that is my client with a 20-year PPA that they're going to pay me, they're bankable. So even if the community doesn't pay, I'm okay, right? And Matt, maybe you can tell me if this is something that is not viable, but this is some of the ways that we're looking to work with some of these off-takers to really de-risk power and then reduce the cost of power to communities, especially in rural areas where there will be things like data centers and that. So I would like to look at it more like that. The question about, how will renewables power, data centers for AI, it's still, we don't even know to what level that's going to get to. It's just massive.
We have two last questions.
Afternoon, everyone. My name is Mona Marima. I'm a final year student here at Strathmore. I'm studying computer science. So I'm very interested in renewable energy, agri-tech, IoT after graduation. So my question is to any of you really about your policy frameworks, the ones that currently exist that you think are enabling towards these steps towards renewable energy, and the ones that you think are hindrances outside of finance and investment, things like political instability and competition and things like that, things that we might not consider as hindrances in the policy. Thanks.
Good question. Good question. George, I take this one. Yeah, the idea that sister brought there, the issue regarding policies, and then is precisely something that I wanted to allow you to know and work on it, is that there is something that changed in the constitution of Kenya in 2010. That is, they say devolution, that your energy plan is going to be in your country, Kilifi, Narok, Makueni, whatever. So this is very interesting because this helps people to take the principle of subsidiarity on steroids, as it were. They go down there and then they can solarize 1, 2, or 10 health facilities, and changing the lives of people. So sometimes I would say with the idea that you do something and then you will become better and you will become part of the solution. Because actually, every time someone who comes and says, doesn't admit that he is part of the problem, he's not part of the solution. Yeah. So this Energy Act 2022 brought a very interesting thing to solve the problem of the money. It was auction. The government says, okay, here is Kisumu, I want a system here. For how much are you selling your kilowatt hour? And then 0.5 of cents of a dollar or etc. So now what happens? In South Africa, they have 20 times more power per person than we in Kenya. 20. So whatever they use in one day, for us 20 days. So why is that? It's because they went very strong on the issue of the auction. So I need Limpopo here, put some solar panel here. Yeah, you know, in the coast there, put wind. And then they actually managed to do that. So important to think, why they are not doing auction here? Because it's too straightforward. That is, you see.
I could just add a little bit on that, like on this regulatory environment question, because I think for traditional utilities, for KPLC or TANESCO, or like we are insurgents, we're kind of viewed as an enemy, because what we're doing is we're taking their best customers and we're switching them across. And so I think we're doing a lot of work, and if you want to go to our website, you can see some of the white papers we've put out, because utilities that stay with that view, so say in Senegal, we can't operate. The utility is very powerful and has squashed all kind of finance distributed renewables. So we just can't operate in Senegal. But what's that going to do for Senegal? Like 20 years from now, everyone else is going to have cheap, resilient, reliable, distributed solar and storage, and Senegal is still going to have Senelec. And so what we're trying to do, but it's fine for us to kind of be antagonistic, but actually I think it's way more productive for us to go to utilities and explain that actually you're in the best possible place. You're a telecoms provider, you've got a bunch of landlines, and it's 1990. So you can outlaw mobile phones and just say you're not allowed, or you can use the customer relationships you have, the infrastructure you have, to become the most powerful player in your nation in this new distributed renewables like revolution. And so trying to help utilities see the potential as well as the threat, and so that we can navigate to this new, more resilient, cheaper, cleaner future faster.
Okay, my name is Michelle Mwambela. I'm the CEO of the Association for Women in Energy and Extractives. I have two questions. One, I think this will go to Catherine and Wangari. Financing, oh, they are very brief. Financing, definitely a pain in the neck. Are there models that work or have worked that the young entrepreneurs in this room or in Kenya and SMEs can take advantage of when trying to create local solutions? Very quickly, number two, Matt, you said, the more renewables we make, the cheaper it becomes. Now, minerals are required for technologies, renewable energy technologies. What kind of impacts should we brace for because of mining? Thank you.
Good question.
So, in relation to financing, I'm a project developer, and it's basically my daily work to look for grants for our projects because they are very high upfront development costs. We usually take on as project developers. So one of the things I've seen that has worked is these co-financed grant opportunities that enable us to do our feasibility studies, where you put in part of your capital, in doing the feasibility studies and then bringing in co-developers to get an early stake in your project when they see there's a business case. So it means we start collaborating with investors quite early in the game, sign very, a typical silent partnership agreements where they have visibility on what we are doing and how the project is progressing, and report to them on this. And in exchange for their development costs, they get a stake in the project in terms of equity. So that is really helping us survive, I would say, in this green hydrogen space because it's new. And some of our investors are also taking a risk on this new project here in Kenya. So advanced stage feasibility facilities are also helpful. These are the final studies you need to build the plant, basically the front-end engineering and design for the plant. So the technology providers also understand these markets. You'd work with a manufacturer or a provider who's entered Namibia and is doing 100 tons per annum green ammonia project, and they're looking at Kenya. They're looking at the opportunities that are here. So we've had to have these conversations with them, having a consortium agreement together with them because they have experience, and investors look at that also, that your technology provider is basically bankable. There's some investors, banks, other facilities who have put money in your project, and the project is in operation. So that also helps you attract finance for your project. So to be honest, grants are really key. We have grants for e-methanol project here in Kenya, and even for wind and solar portfolio in Zambia and Zimbabwe that are helping us do the feasibilities and helping investors like our projects at this early stage.
Should I address the mining question? Or? So I'm really glad you asked that because I think it's a common concern people have about this energy transition. It's going to need all this stuff. And it's true, it's going to need a lot of stuff. Like we're going to need about 6.5 billion tons of end-use material from, that's not counting all the dirt and stuff you're taking out as well, to get this energy transition done by 2050. But we extract 8 million tons of oil every year and 4 million tons of coal every year. So what we actually need for this whole transition is less than what fossil fuel industry requires today. There will be less mining. And I think this is really important because people are kind of wondering who's going to be the new Saudi Arabia of renewables, who's got all the critical minerals, and people in DC and think tanks are all worried about critical minerals. And I have like an encouraging message, which is don't worry about it. You're wearing the wrong pair of glasses. You're looking at the past. You have these fossil fuel tinted glasses, essentially, that worked really well for understanding geopolitics in a fuel-based world, but we're now in a technology-based world. And these technologies are less extractive, like I mentioned. They need far less actual material to drive the transition. There also is a crucial point, is they're not existential. So I can't really pronounce existential, but the point is that when OPEC cut off oil supply to the United States in the 70s, it was 2 weeks away from a zombie apocalypse. People are lining up, farms are stopping working, factories are stopping working. If Russia cut off heat to Europe, cut off gas supply, thousands of people would die of cold in Europe. But that's different if Australia and Chile and China, who have all the lithium, got together. I'm not saying we should, and we said we're going to cut everybody off, until you pay us double. Your electric vehicles would keep working. Your batteries would keep working. Your solar panels would keep working if I cut off the supply of copper and silicon. So you've got time. and these materials are widely available and widely and not concentrated geographically. So this fuel allowed people to wield energy as a tool of power. But in this new world, in this technology-based world, the control of those inputs is no longer going to be differentiating. What's going to make a difference, and this is to your point, I think, is can you build things? Can you build technologies that the world wants? And this is what China's getting really right. Instead of, I mean, they are kind of focused on DRC and all this stuff, but I think that's fine. They're doing that, where the West is doing that. But China's doing this other thing, which is they're actually building the supply chain of the future, and they're building products that people want. They're building products that I buy. And that is what will lead to, that will lead to wealth, and wealth leads to power. And so don't worry about Saudi Arabia style. You just happen to have it under the ground.
I'm going to try speak from the mind because we don't have a lot of time. I was going to speak from the heart, but I don't know if you guys know of Marikiti. They produce almost more than 20 tons of waste a day. Now, I know we've heard a lot about wind energy, hydrogen, and I do commend us all on that renewable energy source. But no one is really talking about organic waste and how we can really feed Nairobi through organic waste. Currently, I'm the founder of Fresh Marikiti. I don't want to say my name because I represent a group of people, developers, students, all over Kenya. And we are trying to compensate the hard-wearing women of the market by giving them money, and they gain through liquid fertilizer as well, through waste management. So now, I know some of you guys are aware that through waste we can get methane, which is flammable, so people can cook from it as well. But my question to the panel is, I know we haven't said anything about organic waste. That's something which is real. And we keep throwing money into these institutions and all of these people to make more food regarding food security, and no one is really looking at the sustainable part of it. Now, it takes more than good ideas and goodwill for something to work. It takes people who know how to feed a city, to feed a city's soul. And I ask you, Matt, I know you're into finance, Wangari, organic waste is not sexy. You've mentioned that word quite a few times. But how do we overcome that? I know the government and everyone really investing into waste management is private. How do we overcome that, not only as Africans, but as people? How do we stop that waste being continuously being supplied? You can imagine 20 tons per week, and it's all being dumped to Dandora. How do we look at that, really?
Worth it. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy to touch on that. This is actually really interesting because the first ever biodigester energy system I ever saw was in Australia. And it's a big system that takes in organic waste from restaurants, landfill. They take crazy things. I'll give you an example. There was a shipment from France of baguettes, like bread. And they set the cooling of the actual container to the wrong temperature when they were shipping the bread across. And so by the time it arrived, the bread was bad, right? So that went into that biodigester as well. And it's fascinating because the way they have mastered the system and the feedstock for the system is that now it creates electricity through, as you mentioned, methane, steam, turns a turbine, electricity. It also produces a bioslurry, which is liquid fertilizer that people can use as fertilizer to grow food, for agriculture. And you can actually dry that bioslurry and make pellets, dry fertilizer that you can sell in sacks. That is also another way to bring in income to an ecosystem. And then water as well is another output of that. And it's fascinating because if you think about it, that container had to go from France to Australia. Where is Kenya? If we had a system like that, we could also take on other waste, including our own waste from Marikiti and other markets across Kenya, and have it as a source of income for the city, so for Nairobi County, but also for all the other counties across Kenya. So what the work you're doing is phenomenal. I think it's amazing. I don't know if you've heard of the Africa Biogas Program. which is run by Hivos as well. They are doing biodigesters all across the world, all across Africa, that is enabling farmers to use cow waste and their own kitchen waste to create fertilizer, so they don't have to buy fertilizer. It's actually better for the soil, better for producing agricultural crop and feeding themselves, right? So it's not that it's not sexy, it's just not talked about enough. And you're right, we do need to have one more seat here with somebody, maybe you know, talking about bioenergy, and it's a key part of this whole mix.
Just to tell you, there is a company called Sistema Bio. They are originally from Mexico, but they have been here for close to 10 years. They have more than 18,000 units installed, and nobody has complained about it. So the things work very well, and I definitely would encourage you to, you know, see how you could join them and make things really impactful.
Okay. My name is Sheila. I'm a mechatronics engineer and an energy researcher at Strathmore. My question is to Wangari and Catherine. If we look at the solar technology, there's the social economic aspect of it, where you see there's a play between quality, safety, and affordability. You find people tend to buy poor quality components for use at home because they are more affordable. My question is, have you thought about how this can happen with other emerging technologies, looking into mostly critical aspects like safety for the green hydrogen sector, and what do you think you can do to avoid this? Because once they understand the technology, they tend to find affordable ways to get these things at the cost of safety and quality, and you may not be in control of that if the imports are coming in and we have suppliers doing things just to make profit. So how can we avoid that in the near future? Thank you.
The way we develop these projects also considers health and safety. Our investors, development banks like the IFC, have criteria for investing in these projects. I'm talking about utility scale projects, wind, solar. So health and safety is one of the things that's already ingrained in project development. And in terms of products, if you move to a product, I can talk about biofuels because I've gotten into that space. Safety is also a key issue we consider in the design of the projects, design of the cook stoves, and the actual fuel that will be handled by a consumer. The cocoa fuel that's distributed in Kenya is usually a blend of ethanol and methanol, and KEBS usually has criteria. When you're manufacturing any chemical, you have to meet that local criteria for you to be able to distribute your product. So it is considered, for you to be able to sell any product, you have to consider, in the biofuel space especially, it's one of the things you do at the tail end when you've developed the plant and you're testing it. You need to get those approvals for you to be able to distribute your product. So the design, even how it is distributed to consumers is also considered for the biofuel subsector.
I think it's impossible. First of all, thank you so much to each and every one of you that has poured in their thoughts into this conversation. I would like for us to give 2 rounds of applause. One to the fantastic panelists on the stage. Wait, we're clapping, but we said a round of applause. So, round of applause. All right, let's do it again. A round of applause to the panelists, please. You can use that in your next engagement. All right, and then another very, very loud round of applause to everyone in the audience. Please, I asked you at the beginning and I'll ask you now. Please shoot your hand up if you've learned something new today. Again, that was a trick question. What I heard, one of the things that we'll do is, since I wear specs, I'll remove them. This is me removing my fossil fuel tinted glasses and wearing something else. But thank you so much. We'd like for the panelists to take their seats, but Next up, we have to deliver the closing remarks, a gentleman with a very interesting title, Climate Diplomacy Counselor for Africa. I've never heard that. Daniel Featherstone to deliver the closing remarks.
I'd really like to thank all our panellists for doing such a wonderful job today. I think we've all learned something very valuable and really useful, so thank you very much for that. Would say Australia is a committed partner to Africa on climate change, and as you heard from the High Commissioner, Australia is undertaking a major transformation of our economy to achieve net zero. I'm very confident the government's working alongside institutions like Curtin and Strathmore and in partnerships with the private sector, will achieve great things in achieving the transition. I'd offer one final thought, and it's been a really good one today. Well, it's not a good thought, but I'll get there. Anyway, to deliver on our commitments and deal with climate change, it will take a huge effort. The challenge can be daunting. But I'm really pleased to say to be here at Strathmore today, because I know I'm looking at the future great engineers, the great policy makers, and the great business people that will make the transition, and we will achieve great things. I'm confident you will do the great things that we need you to do, and I know the challenges we face today will be overcome by all the clever people I'm looking at today. I found the conversation incredibly useful and informative, and I hope you did as well. Please give a round of applause for our speakers and panellists. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Yeah. Very good.
Thank you. So, I've been informed that we have some gifts to be given. Dr. Ogutu, please join us on stage. It's a bit of a surprise. Do you know what the gifts are? No? All right. That's the right answer. The first one goes to Her Excellency Jenny Doreen. Second one to Prof. Prof. Harleen Hain. And of course to Professor Da Silva, please. And then please stay on stage, Prof. Kindly stay on stage. Now, Prof gifts Dr. Ogutu. Then, Dr. Ogutu, please take your seat. Prof, please stay on stage. We should have done this during dress rehearsal. All right. Then, Prof, we'd like you to kindly deliver the gift to Professor Zhang. Next, to Professor Mikler. Then, of course, our fantastic panelist, Catherine Irura. Matthew, please join us on stage next. Wangari Mushiri. Mr. Paul Ochieng, please join us on stage. I mean, as one of your own, you could do. And then there's a name here that says, I don't know, new climate energy expert and hilarious, George Ndirango. Is there anything else?
Join us. Jenny, if you just more gifts. If we could get our panelists, if we could get Matthew to join us, please. Thank you. Thank you. We could just ask Wangari to join us, please. Wangari. Thank you. Thank you. Prof. Isdale, please. And Catherine, if you just come up to the stage. Thank you.
There's one more, all right. Take your time, actually, take your time.
Thank you so much.
Is there anyone else with a gift they want to give? No? Okay. Ladies and gents, thank you very much for your time. We really do appreciate your time. To our guests and our dignitaries who are seated here, lunch will be served from 1:30 as well, so you could make sure to just head out for lunch. For everyone else in the room, I know you're keen on networking, so please just network as much as possible, chat to each other. I know some questions were missed. It wasn't me, it was the timekeeper. So don't look at me funny when we go outside, but I really do appreciate all of you who came. My name is George Ndirango. I do appreciate all of you, even as you go for lunch at 2. Hopefully we'll get to interact as well. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your time. And to Strathmore, asante sana. What do you want? Picture? A picture of all of us? The front? All right. Kindly, if we could all just take a picture together. Please feel free, right here. Yeah. Thank you.
You also made it very entertaining.
Oh, I really appreciate you so much. So much. Anytime, actually. Yeah. Whenever you're ready. Yeah.
International.
Yeah.